Hey, good morning, everybody. I wanted to talk this morning before I got to work about retarder, and the reason is because I've realized recently that at this point now I use retarder pretty much every time I'm getting ready to apply paint to a model, and this is something that has been happening over time. I picked this up. This is, by the way, this is the Vallejo model color slow dry, also known as Retardante. I picked it up because I knew what retarder was, and just for those who don't know, retarder is essentially, and the reason why they call it slow dry, retarder is essentially an agent that you add to your paint that slows the drying time, and for acrylics that's very important because they dry rather quickly. Back in the day, people used to use enamels or oils for all of their painting. A lot of people still swear by those things because you get more work time with them, especially with oils. Oils, if you use them straight from the tube, you get a working time of days, which is really nice if you're doing a lot of blending, and which is why when you see people who know how to do oil painting on miniatures very well, there's a very distinctive smooth finish and smooth blend to all of their paint. And a lot of people didn't like acrylics when they first started appearing in the hobby world because the dry time was so fast that you really just couldn't do that, or at least people who didn't know how to use acrylics couldn't do a nice blend. Now, is a retarder required to get a nice blend? No, but it helps. And it's not the only thing that's nice about it. Just the idea that I can put paint in my palette, which needs to be cleaned, by the way. I can put paint in my palette and know that it's not going to dry right away, and I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of the paint that I put in there, is extremely helpful. The other thing that's nice is that you may have noticed when you're painting with your acrylics, if it dries really quickly, you'll sometimes get a texture over the surface of your model, essentially brush strokes, or you might get, some chunkiness, or, it's adding texture where you don't necessarily want any. But when you're using a retarder, or at least when I do, I end up with extremely smooth finishes because as the paint sets on the model, it evens out as it dries, so you're not going to get the brush strokes. Hopefully you're not going to get those brush strokes. I'm sure it's still possible to do it, but what I have found is that they are less likely to happen. The other use I've found for these or for having the retarder in there is I really like it when I'm doing what do you call that? You're doing scrolls, right? You're doing the sort of implied text on a scroll, which I'll be doing a lot of on these Terminators later. If your paint is too thin, let's just say you thin down your paint with just water, and then you go to paint text on there, there's a good chance the paint will run or splotch, as opposed to going exactly where you want it to be. So maybe you make your paint a little thicker or take it straight from the bottle. Well, now it's just going to blob up on the surface instead of giving you really nice smooth lines. You put some retarder in there, you get the benefit of the thickness, where the paint isn't going to go places where you don't want it to go, but at the same time it spreads nice and smoothly, which means that you can get some really nice fine detail work in that text without having to worry about it either blobbing up or spreading out. So that's been another place where I really liked it. And I actually did another video, and I will link to it down here somewhere, where I discussed using it in dry brushing. And what I discovered with dry brushing is that if you add some extender to your paint, or I keep calling it extender, it's retarder, it essentially does the same thing. Anyway, so if you add the retarder to your paint, you would tend to avoid the chalkiness that sometimes appears when you're doing a dry brush. And I use that on Thagrosh, which again, link. The Thagrosh model, I needed some really, really light accents to the detail of the wings, and I wanted to use a dry brush for that. And I knew that normally that trying to do a really light color, whites just don't like dry brushing, and it'll get chunky. And when I used the retarder with the white, it turned out really nice, very smooth, and worked very well. So that was another reason to do it. But this is just, it's slowly crept into my repertoire in terms of what things that I normally do when I paint. And it started out as an experiment. I bought it and I thought, well, when I think of a use for it, I will use it. At this point now, I can't really think of a reason when I wouldn't use it. So it's really been kind of a turnaround. By the way, although this is the Vallejo one that I'm using, and a little goes a long way. Like I said, I've had this for years, and I think I still have half the bottle left. You can apparently make your own out of glycol and water at apparently a 5-to-1 mix of 5 parts water to 1 part glycol. I haven't tried that yet, but when this starts running low, I'm planning to experiment so that I know that I can always make my own if I need to. But actually, one of the nice things about knowing that you can buy this off the shelf is that you know exactly what you're going to get when you buy it. So I may just buy another bottle of this as well. So anyway, retarder. Give it a shot. It's worth the trouble. And experiment with it. I couldn't even give you a good recipe in terms of mix. You're not going to get anywhere near 50-50. I've heard 30% at a maximum in terms of 30% of your volume of your paint as the retarder. I started off just using sort of a drop, small drop with a couple of brushfuls of paint. This is, with painting, there are no exact recipes for things. You kind of just get the feel for it. So try it out, give it a shot. Let me know what your experiences are.